Good evening. Welcome to the first of the fall 2020 Prout Chapel BFA capstone readings. This evening we have three writers performing for us. The first writer, Kayla Hunter, is a fiction writer who explores relationships, particularly between couples who are challenged by external forces that threaten to upend what might have been long-lasting love. These forces are at times geographical, cultural, sexual, or even, at least in one of her stories, supernatural. What impresses me most about Kayla's work is her commitment to the character, her earnest investigation into the person, the people who must, because they are alive, make mistakes. A young writer with this dedication to the inevitable errors we must make is brave, praiseworthy, and the stuff of greatness. Her thesis title is still being decided. She has three contending titles: Words That Rhyme with Orange, Why We Try, Dead Hearts Worth Saving. I would like to propose this evening, unbeknownst to Kayla prior to this moment, fourth title. It is a title made of words, her own, that she created during the summary of her thesis. First Loves, Small Towns, Inner Demons. If Kayla does not like that title for her thesis, I think it is perfect in any case for this introduction. I will repeat it. First Loves, Small Towns, Inner Demons. The second reader tonight is Colleen Beckloff. Colleen is 100% poet. There are not many of those. The joy is all there in her work, in every wrought word, wrought with joy, wrought with passion, and wrought with the ringing of her devotion to her craft. She's a little bit obsessed with flowers. But then so too was Louise Glick, and look where that got her. Maybe then this is the year of the poet who can remind us of the universe of beauty and the thing we take for granted and give it not just voice, but voice. Our third and final reader this evening is MK Donisi. MK has stories spilling out of stories, stories that can't stop wanting to be told. The idea for her novel, called The Negative Side, was born in her consciousness in the 7th grade and has been with her ever since, compromising a large portion of the thesis that she will be handing in very soon. To put it bluntly, MK has the most enviable condition for a writer to have. She can't not write. In her own words, quote, "It might sound strange, but if I don't write, there's this sick feeling in my soul," unquote. And how lucky we are that she will be writing to stay well, so that we may stay well by reading her. Please welcome these three terrific talents. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to my very small Ohio bedroom. I would say that I'm so terribly sorry that we were not able to meet up in person today, but if I'm honest, I think I am only a fraction of as nervous as I would have been if we were doing this live. With that being said, I am still quite nervous. But aside from all that, tonight I will be reading a excerpt of a story that I have been working on and off for the past year or two. I've gone back and forth with this. It's seen a lot of different phases, but there has been one version of it that has remained pretty consistent. And I personally really enjoy it. So that is what I will be reading tonight. And it is called Falling. So I will just get right into that. Falling. To say it's a hole in the ground would be an understatement. The ditch is as wide as a pair of football fields and nearly as deep as one, too. It stretches almost completely across the expanse of Mr. Mason's soybean field and leaves a deep, sinking feeling in the pit of my gut. "Parker, can you see it?" Mackenzie asks me, neck craning as he lifts onto his tiptoes to get a better look. "As well as you can," I say. The local sheriffs have taped off the perimeter of the ditch about 50 feet away from the edge so that we stand back far enough to be out of danger, but close enough that the small crowd of townspeople gathered can feel the sheer, overwhelming largeness of the crater in the ground. How it got here seems to be the question on everyone's mind. It is too large to have been dug by hand and has appeared too suddenly for there to be a logical explanation for its existence. But its unexpected arrival isn't what bothers me. There is something unsettling about how perfect it is. The concave curve is so smooth I find it hard to imagine we could have dug out the earth with such flawless execution. It sends an unnerving chill down my spine. But where caution settles uncomfortable in my bones, anxious excitement seems to fill Max to the brim. We've made our way to the edge of the tape, the yellow plastic bouncing against the zipper of Max's parka. He has this look in his eye, that irrepressible curiosity that shines almost dangerously in the darkness of his irises, a brown so deep they seem black against the brightness of the blonde that falls messily across his forehead. "You're such a fucking nerd," I say, eyes rolling. My fingers wrap around his wrist to pull him back a step from the caution tape. It is exactly the reaction I'd expected from him. So much so that I can't stifle the laugh that bursts from my chest. He manages to tear his eyes away from the crater in the ground to look at me. Or rather, to look down at where my fingers still linger on his wrist. The smile drops from my face as quickly as my hand drops back to my side. It's not that he minds, I know. Had it been up to him, he'd have taken my hand back in an instant, laced our fingers together, and leaned comfortably into my side. It's more that I mind, that everyone around us would mind even more. Two boys not only skipping class to get a fill of the town gossip, but canoodling against the caution tape on top of that. Matt grows still in the sudden distance between us. The inch of space between the back of our hands feels more like miles and miles. "Come on," I say. "We're going to be late for class." Our eyes settle on each other's for just a second, but we say all that we need to in that glance. "I'm sorry. I forgive you. I'll make it up to you later. Sure." As we turn away to make our way back to my truck, Matt glances over his shoulder to take in the inexplicable scene once more, and it's there again. The irrepressible curiosity that will be the death of him. "It's gotta be aliens, right?" he says. "Mrs. Mason is missing," Max says later that night. "What?" I ask, around a mouth full of potato. Across the table, Max sits with his foot perched up onto the seat of the booth's bench, knee bent to his chest. "Mrs. Mason is missing," he repeats, voice calm as he reaches forward for the ketchup. "Yeah, I heard you, but what? Where'd you hear that?" "The news? Since when do you watch the news?" He shakes the ketchup bottle once, then pauses to look at me like, ha ha, and I laugh because it is funny. Not that Mrs. Mason is missing, but that Max got this so stuck in his head of his. He shakes the bottle again, forces all of the ketchup into the neck of it, and then squirts an unnecessary amount across the pile of French fries on his plate. I pick one up off of my own plate and dip it into the isolated puddle of ketchup at the edge of it. "It's just a hole in the ground," I say. The diner is quiet tonight. Empty enough that I let the edge of my shoe run up Max's shin. "To you," he says, pushing his fries distractedly across his plate. "What do you think they're going to say about it?" "I don't know. Does it matter?" "Yes. If they downplay it, then it's aliens." "Aliens? In the middle of Iowa? Dude." I shake my head and brush the crumbs from my jeans. Mac isn't fazed by my lack of enthusiasm. "This is exactly the place they'd come," he says. "Whatever you say, Mackenzie." In the corner of the room, a small TV murmurs the evening news, a panning shot of Mr. Mason's farm sliding across the screen behind the blue-suited news anchor my mother has a crush on. Under the table, my foot retreats. Chime on the door rings throughout Mike's hardware as Mac steps inside. "Hey," he whispers. Whispered and rushed like he's nervous. I glance to the section of hammers hanging on the wall across the room where my father restocks the empty hooks. "Hey." There's relief in my voice, the sudden appearance of Mac as reassuring as it is nerve-wracking. I step from behind the counter and begin to push my arms into the sleeves of my coat. "Dad, I'm heading out," I call. "Where to?" "The library." It's not a lie, but it feels like one. He turns to eye me like he might tell me to shut up and get back behind the register. Fred Williams is a bland man. I inherited his straight nose and the downturned set of his mouth, and my eyes are the same dull gray as his. But I got the shape of them from my mother, and it makes all the world of difference. Because when Fred looks from me to Mac, it's with a look so rotten that Mac jumps in his skin. I can feel it even as we desperately stand as far apart from each other as the cramped storefront will allow. "We're going to study for a chemistry test," I say, breaking the silence and interrupting whatever my father is fixing to say. I'm still waiting for the day he forbids me from ever being seen with Mac again. "His kind's not good for you," he'd say. "Mac tutors people for free, so..." "Your mother's got the night off. Be home for dinner. You hear me?" Fred says. "Yeah, Dad. I'll be back before the sun sets. No worries," I say, and don't give him any time to change his mind. Mac doesn't relax until we're halfway down First Avenue, but we walk with our hands tucked safely into our own pockets until we reach the library. The stack of books that Mac drops onto the table is heavy enough to have Miss Granger shushing us from across the room. "Have you heard back from NYU yet?" I ask Mac without so much as a glance in her direction. On a Saturday afternoon, the Dyersville Public Library is about as empty as it gets, and it's one of the two places we can go to just be. No, not yet," Mac responds, but barely. He's too focused on the stack of books he's just accumulated from God knows which forgotten corner of dust. My eyes scan the titles: Beyond UFOs, Ancient Aliens and Secret Societies, the Alien Abduction Files, Walking Among Us, The Alien Plan to Control Humanity. Seriously? He sighs and looks up with a small, "What?" "Nothing, it's just..." "Isn't this a bit much? Because of a hole in a field?" "It's not just a hole in a field, Parker," he starts, and I immediately regret saying anything at all. If it isn't the ditch this, then it's Mrs. Mason that, or half-cooked plans to sneak past the taped-off scene of investigation or to befriend the conspiracy theorists that have begun to trickle into town. I try not to shoot down his excitement or keep him from getting his hopes up. I do that enough as it is, but the more time that passes without answers about that stupid fucking ditch, the more it feels like we talk less and less about anything that isn't that. I sigh to keep from saying something mean. I also inherited my temper from my father. Dinner is rotisserie chicken that Mom picked up from Fairway, boxed mashed potatoes and canned sweet corn that she heated up in a pot on top of the stove. Fred made such a fuss to get home over this. In the back of my mind, I know that had I proposed an afternoon studying with Bailey Quinn from next door instead, my father would have pulled me aside and slid me a condom as discreetly as he was capable of. But Mac is decidedly not Bailey Quinn, and my father really isn't as stupid as he acts. "That friend of yours," Mom says, clearing her throat and unfolding a paper napkin in her lap like she's some upper-class housewife hosting the dean of my prestigious boarding school for a dinner party rather than making small talk at her chipped dinner table with her asshole husband and closeted son. "Mackenzie, right?" "God, Mom, I think." "Shut up." He's more of a tutor," I say, and shove a spoonful of corn into my mouth to keep myself from talking. "You said he's applying for NYU. Has he heard back yet? You should invite him over for dinner sometime. You never bring friends home." I know her concerns are genuine, but Dyersville is a small town filled with 200 of the same kind of people. I try to keep Mac as far away from all of them in my mind as possible. But Mom works dinner shifts at Joe's 2nd Street Diner, and Mac and I spend more nights than we should shoved into a booth with plates of french fries on "we're just friends" dinner dates there. So he's come up in a conversation or two. I tell her enough to keep her from being curious, or at least I thought I did. Fred eyes me suspiciously across the table, and suddenly it's too small. "How much time you spend with that kid?" he asks, mouthful. "I mean, we're classmates. He helps me with chemistry sometimes. I don't know. We're friends, I guess. Those the kinds of kids you spending all this time away from home with? People gonna start talking, boy, he says with a shake of his head, elbows perched on the table and greasy fingers clasped loosely. Those kinds of kids? What kind, Dad? Fred laughs like I've just cracked a joke. You know what I mean. One look at that. Mackenzie, kid, and anyone will know what he's up to. You be careful, Parker. That kind of talk gonna start making me lose business. What kinds of kids, Dad? I ask once more. I can hardly unclench my jaw enough to shape the words. Fred sits up in his chair. He squares his shoulders and looks me dead in the eyes to emphasize the word. I stand. Okay, that's enough, Mom cuts in sternly. She looks to Fred like she can't believe what he's just said, but she won't correct him. Parker, sit down. Finish eating. I'm not hungry, I say. I won't correct him either. Tears betray me before I even make it to the top of the stairs. I'm only bold enough to slam my bedroom door shut on my way to burying myself in the mess of sheets on my bed. This is it. This is what the rest of my life is going to look like, feel like. My tears fall fast and hot down my face, more anger than anything else. I reach out to pull my phone from its home on the charger beside my bed, just wanting to hear Mac's voice. The screen lights up with his name. It's a plethora of texts. Mackenzie Smith, 8:41 p.m. Did you know this has happened before? In 1975, there were reports of weird crop circles popping up in a couple places in Iowa. Mackenzie Smith, 8:41 p.m. And in 1889. Mackenzie Smith, 8:43 p.m. There are reports of people going missing after seeing weird lights in the sky. Mackenzie Smith, 8:56 p.m. We have to go back and investigate. Seriously, Parker. And it keeps going. There are links to articles and YouTube videos, screen caps from documentaries, and blurry black and white pictures with poorly drawn red circles all over them that don't help the pictures to make any more sense. I think back to a few weeks ago before the ditch appeared, to Mac so focused on finishing his admissions essay that he wouldn't even play footsies with me underneath the library tables. I try to think of what we used to talk about in the times in between in the booths at Joe's before he had this to talk about. It's weird. I stare at the text for a little bit longer, tears gone dry and sticky on my face, before shoving my phone under my pillow and pulling my covers over my head. For once, Mackenzie Smith is the last person I want to talk to. It's been a month since the hole in Mr. Mason's soybean field showed up, and every day there's a larger crowd coming into town to see it and make up conspiracies about it. Mac has dragged me down to the site a few times. We always go early on our way to class and hold hands or stop to make out on our way back when we cut through the woods from the farm to town. But the more and more people that come into town, the busier and busier things get. I've had to put in more hours behind the register at Mike's Hardware, and Joe's Diner is always it's always too packed for us to have dinner with any peace of mind. The mixture of familiar versus unfamiliar faces has become too much to process, so we've steered clear of there completely. Even the library has been uncomfortably full, with college application deadlines coming up and everyone waiting until the last minute to polish up their essays. It's a good thing Mac applied early, and I'm not applying at all, because there's no way he'd get anything done now. We've resorted to Mac's bedroom, which is fine, it is. Mac is out and his mom knows about us, so it's the second of the two places where we can just be. But with her knowledge also comes rules. There's curfew and the door has to stay open at all times. In a way, it feels more intrusive than anywhere else because we know we're being watched. And something about knowing that Mac's mom knows, it leaves me feeling itchy all over. But I can't deny that this has its perks as well. Mac's mom works 9 to 5, which leaves us with anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of freedom between getting home from school and her getting home from work. I'm pretty sure I've kissed Mac more this past week than I have in the entirety of knowing him. He's got his hands tangled in the hair at the nape of my neck, knees bent on either side of my thighs. I sit upright against his pillows and with a hand up his shirt to kiss him silly, pulling him back for more every time he slows and starts to talk. You'd think he wouldn't be able to with a tongue down his throat, but on his 5th attempt he doesn't stop, just keeps breathing out words in between the press of our lips. They changed it, he says. What? I whine, wanting him to just be quiet. It's not a sewage leak anymore, he says, and I let him pull away this time. They're saying it was just a prank, or like some revenge scheme against the Masons. No one's really gotten their story straight yet, but what matters is that they've changed it. So, I questioned distractedly, lips moving to mouth along the corner of his jaw. The hand that isn't up his shirt pulls at the hem of his jeans to tuck him down tighter into my lap. So, they're making excuses. Stupid ones, he presses on, pulling me away from his neck with a tug to my hair. Who in this town is smart enough to come up with something like that? And why Mr. Mason? They're trying to close the investigation as quickly as possible because the real reason is classified. Big red stamp and all. I sigh and let my head loll back into the wall with a soft thud. He looks at me expectantly. When my father was in high school, our football team went to the state championships. Until now, that was the most exciting thing to ever happen to Dyersville. Then the crater showed up. And suddenly, we're from someplace interesting. A place people have traveled across state lines in their busted up RVs and tinfoil hats to see firsthand. I try to understand the excitement, try to share Mac's interest in it, but I just can't. The tourists, the journalists, the way I can't enjoy the last few months I have with Mac in peace. It's annoying. It's really fucking annoying. Okay, they're making excuses. Who? I ask, pretending to care. The government, babe, keep up. And we care because that just proves even more that there's something to investigate. There's something going on that they aren't telling us, and we should find out what it is. I don't bother asking who we is. I just stare at him, and he looks down to where I've gone soft against his thigh. He has half a mind to smile sheepishly and give a soft sorry. Have you heard from NYU yet? I ask. I can count on one hand the amount of times Mac has seen my bedroom, but I can't even begin to count the amount of times I've asked him that question in the past month. He sits at my computer desk flipping through printed out articles he wants me to read. He thinks he started to connect the dots on where Mrs. Mason might have disappeared to. Theories about abduction and involvement of the authorities. They're going to start filling the ditch soon. Investigations have wrapped up enough that they can start getting rid of the physical evidence, and Mr. Mason can begin to replant his soybean crop. Mackenzie is running out of excuses to avoid this conversation. They say that they're looking for a body, but honestly, I don't think they're looking at all, Mac says. Do you think you'll hear from them soon? What? Probably, but look at this. They're saying they've started making arrests under accounts of vandalism and property damage. It's bullshit. I'm going to start working some full-time shifts closer to the end of December. Dad wants to show me how to start running things. Oh, maybe we could volunteer to help Mr. Mason out at the farm. He's going to have to replant his entire field. We might find something. I stare at him in disbelief. What the hell is wrong with you? I demand, refusing to let him deflect anymore. He stops, words dying in his throat. My parents are out of town for a funeral, gone for an entire weekend. They've left me to watch over the house. Any other kid I know would have already sent out invitations for the rager they're going to throw, but all I want is a night uninterrupted with Mac, without the stupid conspiracy theories. Was that really all you have to talk about? Aliens and crop circles? What is your deal with this thing, Mackenzie? We've barely talked about anything other than that ditch since it showed up. He sighs, and he doesn't say anything as he stands and crosses the room to his backpack. He digs through it unceremoniously and pulls out the giant envelope from NYU. It hasn't even been opened yet. I got in, he says, voice flat. He shoves the sealed letter towards me, and I take it. Mac, that's amazing. That's so cool, I start. But he doesn't seem thrilled about it at all, even though it's his first choice school and the one application he'd stressed over for weeks at the beginning of the year. Were you even going to tell me? I accuse eventually. Does it matter? He asks. Of course it does. Seriously, what is up with you? I ask. Of course I was going to tell you, Parker. Do you really think I wouldn't? He sighs, and his hands lift in his lack of words. Were you, though, Mac? You've barely even been here the past few weeks. If it isn't about that stupid fucking ditch, then it's Mrs. Mason or it's some other story you've dug up on Reddit about UFOs in fucking Kansas. What is with this? Why are you so worried about it? I don't know. Because maybe that's the only thing I feel like I can talk to you about these days. All you care about is whether I've heard back from NYU or if I've started looking up jobs to save up for the airfare, or hell, I don't know, just shit I don't want to think about, okay? Maybe I don't want to go anymore, like at all. Why are you so eager to get rid of me? I'm stunned. I rush over to him and take his face into my hands. I don't want you to go. I mean, I do, it's just, I can't watch you get stuck here. I can't watch you throw away opportunities and ruin the rest of your senior year because of some irrelevant obsession. It's not about that, Parker. I don't want to go where you aren't, he says, and there's a desperation in his voice that tugs my heart raw. That's always been the plan. Mac was going to get into NYU and move to New York and follow his dreams, and I was going to stay here and take over the hardware store. That's just how it's meant to go. You have to go. You can't stay here, Mackenzie. He pulls his face out of my hands. Don't tell me what to do. Mac, what? No. Stop it, Parker. Just fucking stop. You don't get to choose for me. I do. I don't want to watch you get stuck here either. Not with your dad or that bullshit hardware store marrying someone like Bailey goddamn Quinn because you're too chicken shit to tell anyone that you like it up the ass. Don't yell. I'm right, he says. And he's red in the face now. And you know it. You are right. I don't have a choice. You do. Which is the exact reason why you have to choose the option to get the fuck out of this place. Why are you being so stupid? Because I don't want to leave you. I want you to. I don't want you here. I don't want to be with you if you're here. I can't be the reason you get stuck in this stupid fucking town. We deserve so much more than that, don't you think? No, he says, snatching his articles from my desk and his unopened acceptance letter from my bed. He shoves them all into his backpack. I think you're a pathetic coward. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my reading tonight. If you had told me 3 years ago, when I was but a freshman in my first 099, that I would be here reading my own poetry, I would not have believed you. Not only was I an art student at the time, I have had the worst stage fright since 7th grade. So, while it's a shame that we can't be in person for Prout this year, it has its benefits. You don't know if this is my first take or my 29th. No, I have not been keeping count. So 3 years ago, like I mentioned, I was an art student and I was just a creative writing minor, so I didn't think I would have to read. But in my second year, I realized how draining visual arts was for me, and whenever times got tough in the studio, I would turn to poetry. So it was a no-brainer to switch over. So my first poem that I will be reading for you tonight is kind of the beginning of my entire thesis. It's what generated the theme. And when I wrote it in the spring, my best friend told me if I didn't include it in my thesis that she would stop talking to me. So here it is. Intimate Lives of Wild Honeybees. Honeycombs broken by violent homesteaders are the shacks where we settle our slow, dispirited bodies. We have been forced into sheltering ourselves in the hollows of dead wolf trees, begging and praying to our dead queen mothers that the colonists don't come again. When we fly under their nose, women herd away their children, afraid of a stinger we don't have. When we interlace bodies to make honey, men rejoice in selfish glee. To them, we survive only as a vessel of lust, carnality, their own personal gain, like the Greeks' golden fleece. But, Queen Mothers, we hold your memory close to our hearts, and remember, we are not for them. So that poem was generated in a prompt where you had to pick an article title and write about it. So the original article was Photographs Inside of a Tree Reveal Intimate Lives of Wild Honeybees. and I wanted to play with the voyeuristic concept that I got from it. And at the time I was beginning to accept myself as lesbian, so it made sense to kind of like combine those. And like I said, it was the beginning of my thesis. Not to say that all of the poems were written specifically for my thesis, but around this time I was writing a lot of gay poetry. I was exploring my sexuality through my poetry and vice versa. This next poem is a good example of that. It started as just an aubade about a woman waking up before her partner, earlier than, like, before the sun came up. And it evolved from that into a pantoum. Now, I don't usually I don't jump to form when I'm trying to write poetry, but in this case, my exploration of sexuality encouraged my exploration of poetry. So here's Aubade for a Sleeping Lover. The early sun rises, raw light filtering through the curtains. In the same room, a lover sleeps, still and calm. Her dreams are made of hilltops, mountains, holding the early sun as it rises. At this hour, the silence is heavy, so you hum a quiet hymn, while in the same room your lover sleeps. The mug of tea warms your hands. You watch her cheek press into the pillow, the early sun rising, shining light onto her face. The first secret, first feeling, was told here. In the same room, a lover sleeps, and you want to tell her again, whisper in her ear so her dreams remember. Early sun rises, risen. I love you in the same room. So, as I'm sure many other queer people know, the path to accepting your sexuality isn't always an easy one. I was really worried about how my family would react, and I'm still not out to everyone. I'm not even sure my dad knows, but I don't hide it anymore. I'm not scared. This next poem was from a prompt where we had to find an idiom and make it literal. And when I found this one, it made too much sense. Queer the pitch, an idiom, to destroy or ruin a plan. Denial comes easy. Touch the flame, a pretty menagerie of light. Imagine its warmth. The burn is an afterthought. My parents were fire eaters, tried to coax me into their shoes. He was a fire eater too, and it made too much sense to argue. For too long, I denied the truth. I touched the flame for them, for him. Denial came easy. Then imagine this, drinking water for the first time, a salve on a scorched throat. She ruined my future as a fire eater, the future my parents wanted for me. She held me, eased the burns left over. It was easy to accept her. Now I'm gonna drink some water. This is not stage. Okay. So I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of different places. Being that I was an art student for 2 years, I write a lot of ekphrastic poetry. I take a lot of inspiration from art. Some of my favorite classes were art history classes. So there's a lot of that in today's reading. But I also draw inspiration from mythology, women in literature, nature. You know, sometimes I'll just like overhear a flower or a plant, and I'm like, I want to write about that. So this next poem started out as a nature poem, but it evolved into a focus on women in literature. This one is a response to Edgar Allan Poe's Lenore. Lenore. The church bell tolls midnight, distant, slow like the march of a tender heart. She appears at the end of the corridor, body sheer as her silk sleeping gown. I remember how it used to feel, gentle against my legs, during the woefully few nights we spent together. The caress of her silhouette, backlit by light from the full moon, softened around the edges like pussy willow blossoms, like she was dried in time before she had the chance to fully flower. Life still in her yellow hair, but death within her eyes. This next one is also about a very famous woman in literature, Ophelia. I wanted to kind of like take her death, which a lot of people speculate as suicide because she was mad, she was hysteric. So I wanted to take it and I wanted to kind of like reinvent it. And the, you know, as she uses in her song, the flower language here is very intentional. Ophelia's soliloquy. To swim in sweet murky water is like breathing in the scent of peonies and running fingers over silken robes. Even leadened with the weight of her dressings, floating to the bottom of the pond is the sound of a harp's song. There is no hysteria sunk into her bones as the fingertips of one hand drift in a languid reach for the sun. Finally, the unrest she'd grown in her breast settles like the ripples in the water above her. There's rosemary, that's for remembrance. Remember me, she thinks now, with the bouquet of daisies and baby's breath. And when morning comes and the maids find my body, remember that daisies are for innocence and baby's breath for love. And petals from rosemary and rue rush in a frenzy for the surface. She cannot understand their hunger to breathe. Nothing holds her to this world anymore. Embracing the surge of darkness creeping behind her eyes comes all too easy. Okay, so this next poem it's a healthy mix of everything I value in my poetry. Mythology, nature, art, women. So the way Venus is portrayed in both classic myth and art is in a very particular way, and I wanted to question it, you know? And I chose Botticelli's painting because it to me it feels too like beauty standard and less authentic beauty. So I've always held a grudge against him for that painting, even though he was, you know, from several centuries ago. So this poem is very close to my heart. It's undergone a lot of revision in the past year, but I'm really proud to say that it's finally done. The Birth of Venus, after Sandro Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. They say she was born from sea foam, rising from the water like the sun, entangled beauty embodied on a seashell stage. Golden hair, long and elegant, wrapped around to cover her. To her left, winds directed her to shore, and at her right, the goddess of spring welcomed her to land. They say pink flowers billowed around her, ushered her in as a new goddess. But they got the myth wrong. Botticelli should have painted her on a bed of tiarella, cushioned by veiny heart leaves, face framed by feathery little crowns. She would be an image of languid love, draped along soft dirt and grass instead of a trophy set on half of a clamshell. Instead of emerging from sea foam, she is growing in this garden of foam flowers, her skin running with rivulets of dew. Moths and butterflies who swim through thick air worship her as the dolphins did. Imagine gilded fingers reaching from between the weeds, touching those clutches of tiny white stars, soft tufted tips, hair coarse with fertilized dirt. Imagine mud lips gasping for fresh air, sprouting rosebuds, desperation fueling her need to breathe, rawness in her eyes framed by dirt-clumped lashes. She cannot sink into ground like she could into water. Imagine, once she is risen, She breathes with us. Okay, I'm gonna drink some more water. That one's a doozy. But I love it. It's probably my favorite poem in this thesis. So that was an ekphrastic poem, and this next one is also an ekphrastic poem. But when you write ekphrasis, one of the biggest challenges is to not just describe the art piece that you're writing about, whether it be a painting or a sculpture, or a photograph. You have to introduce something to the reader, something new. So in this next poem, I create a new character using the perspective of the viewer, and making her a character, the handmaiden, and showing her thoughts of the woman in the print. A daydream and pattern, after Mary Cassatt's woman bathing. The handmaiden stands at the ready, a cotton towel draped across her arm, watching as her lady cups lukewarm water from the wash basin. She tries not to look too closely at how the striped fabric calls to her, how the dress's blouse bunches around her waist, how it dips further and further down. She turns away, but the ringing in her ears sings so sweetly. What she wouldn't give to follow those rivulets running down the lithe line of her naked back. In another life, perhaps their positions would switch, their roles reversed in the mirror's reflection. If she were the one to soak herself in the wash basin, would she too move just so that her lady now maid might notice the persuasive shape of her body, the water dripping down her neck, the sweeping peak of her breasts? Perhaps her lady would hear the same soft voices of her silhouette. Perhaps she would wear that same striped dress, entrance her body like a gentle lull to sleep. So in the spring, when the quarantine hit, we were all knocked off our feet. I did learn a lot of good techniques in a workshop last semester. It was a pity that it was cut short, but this next one results from a length prompt. It had to be a certain length long, certain amount of lines, and I used the technique from the first poem to base it off of an article title. So I was looking for articles, and the most recent one was about flowers, and it had pictures of a massive amount of flowers being thrown away, and I just felt so angry that they were growing these flowers just to throw them out. So here is: the Netherlands' huge flower sector wilts as coronavirus hurts business. My sisters are dying. I remember the earth before death, before the ignorant man sinned, bit into the mortal palm. Fruit are spiteful things, too easily molded into malice. We are blamed too, for wilting too quickly. But listen to me, were it not for your greed, we would flourish. Dianthus wishes for a time where her children covered green landscapes again. Even the saviors of your kind can't save us. You can't order flowers to stop growing, you said. So they are lost. We are lost. Were it not for your greed, we would flourish. You nurtured tulips, roses, chrysanthemums, carnations. For profit. Have you seen the carnage of my people? Your decay has spread to your own children, forced you into quarantine. You abandoned us. Now, because of your neglect, we suffocate, drown above water. I'm gonna drink more water. Whenever my poems say water in it, I'm like, I should drink some water. So my best friend helped me out with this next one. I was in a major writing slump last semester, so I asked her what I should write about, She said, write a gay poem. And I said, that's not enough. I do that all the time. So she said, write about a peach and an apricot. So I did. Not sure if you've figured it out yet, but I did mention I'm pretty into mythology, but I'm also specifically into the idea of beginnings, of origin myths, like the birth of Venus. Ovid's Metamorphosis is probably my favorite piece of Roman literature that I've read, so naturally I take inspiration from it. If you don't know, Metamorphosis is just a bunch of stories, origin stories, about how things were made. Daphne became the laurel tree, Narcissus became the flower, etc. This next poem takes the same concept, but it doesn't fall under classic myth. Here it is. New myths, the peach and the apricot. Have you heard the origin story of the peach and the apricot? They were lovers once, with gowns of colored dusk, hair bound in matching red ribbons. They had met under the shade of a sycamore tree, eyes alight with a fire before undiscovered. Hearts quivered in a new song, flesh thrummed in exhilarated melody, breath caught in starlight filtered by the canopy above. Fingertips touched faint enough to be sickly sweet, left erect goose flesh in their wake, and lips fit themselves together in a caress fashioned by fate herself. They palmed each other's thighs, concealed under tablecloths, whispered secrets hot into each other's ears, brushed lips when there was hardly moonlight to light their path. Yet still they were exposed by those who forbid love like theirs, even after all their careful secrecy. Forced apart, denied a love that others damned. Broken hearts dried like a witch's medicinal flowers, and upon their death tilled into rich and fertile ground. With the next coming of dawn, two green buds, white and pink blossoms coupled, gave their tale of a love lasting longer than one life. I'm getting out of breath, can you tell? Okay. Well, this is my last poem for you guys, and before I finish, I want to thank everyone watching. I've had a really great time in the writing department. I found who I was here. I wasn't just an ambiguously queer person who does art. I am a lesbian who does poetry. And I've made so many great friends here. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't have done it any differently. I'm gonna finish off with a new poem, another ekphrastic poem. Whenever I'm low on inspiration, I go onto museum websites and look through their collection. This one is at the Toledo Museum of Art. And it's still in the process of revision, so bear with me. Sakura Sakura, after Hiroshi Yoshida's Kumoi Cherry Tree. Cherry trees blossom upon the first warmth of spring, under the new sun, but they must grow in the bitter cold of winter for their fruit to be sweeter. Two women share a breath in the empty atmosphere, taking a moment to just exist in the heavy comfort of silence which surrounds them. Among the light indigos of night, dawn breaching just over the horizon, the only warmth to be found comes from the pink color of the blossoms, falling to the ground and each other's arms. The cherry tree is a swift lover, tells us to appreciate the time we spend with our loved ones, tells the women to still in this moment together, ethereal, ephemeral. Thank you.
Hello! You don't know me, but I know all of you. My name is Crete, or Crieti. Science hasn't gotten back with me on that yet, but anyway, I'll be doing the reading of the negative side since MK is way too nervous to do it. So I said I would do it for her. She owes me one. So if you're hearing this, MK, you owe me one. See? My name is Crete. It's even on my sword. Alright, I better stop procrastinating and do this before she kills me. And yes, the eye patch is just for show. Unfortunately, I can see just fine. Alright. The Negative Side by MK. I draw my fingers against the flat surface of my desk. There are 20 minutes left before we're let out of school for the day. I'm resting my chin on my hand, my fingers tracing the green, heart-shaped pennant on my necklace. My elbow is digging into my open notebook. Miss White, my English teacher, is scribbling furiously on the whiteboard. I should be taking real notes and not scribbling random nonsense. After all, we'll have a quiz on Friday. But, to be honest, I don't give a crap. I can Google a summary of the plot before school on Friday. Next to me is my best friend. She's writing almost as fast as Miss White. I watch her hand blur as her pencil dances across the notebook paper. Could remind her that taking notes is stupid, but she won't listen. Skylar takes 8th grade English very seriously. I think it's a waste of precious time. Since Miss White has her back to us, I decided to sneak out my phone. She's writing quite a lot, so I know I have a moment. There was an update to my phone during lunch, which included some new filters for my camera app. I'm excited to check them out. If photo editing and filters were a class, I'd be passing with flying colors. I know that probably sounds vain, but I feel like it's something that my father would have loved, so I do it to feel close to him. I balance my phone in my lap and open the camera. There's Cola, Wintertime, and Forbidden. Cola is a gross brown filter with fizz at the top of the photo. Wintertime is just poorly made CGI snowflakes. I don't want to bother with Forbidden, since the other two are such disappointments. But curiosity, and knowing that Miss White is almost done writing, has me tap on it. Hues of blue and black flood the selfie. It sends a chill down my spine and I lock my phone. Something about that filter nags at me. I slide my phone into my pocket as Miss White turns back around. I feel the phone buzz and want to groan. Go figure. As soon as I put my phone away, the damn thing goes off. I stare at my notebook paper and pick up my pencil, acting like I had just set it down for a moment. I've learned very quickly that if you make eye contact with a teacher, or if you're obviously not paying attention, they pick on you to answer. Sometimes, the teachers will walk around too, like it's jail time. The notebook has a purple tint to it. I rub my eyes, then look again. White with no purple in sight. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see Skylar looking down. She can be such a teacher's pet, but on a day like today, she wants to be left alone too. So, class, why do you think it's important for me to teach books like this? Miss White asks. My eyes move to the book perched on the corner of my desk. Alice Through the Looking Glass and What She Saw There by Lewis Carroll. The sequel to Alice in Wonderland. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Alice in Wonderland, but I hate that Miss White is making such a big fuss about literary elements and character development. I'm not an expert, but I think Carroll didn't write this book so a bunch of bored middle schoolers can gain an insight to life. Hell, most of these kids can't even gain an insight into deodorant and showering, let alone the meaning of life. The urge to say that sits on my tongue. My phone vibrates again, causing the words to leave my mouth. Miss White places her hands on her desk. She's going to do that stupid waiting game and wait for someone in this class to answer her. Doesn't she understand that we don't give a crap? It's early release day, and we have 15 minutes left to go. By now, any sane teacher would have given up on trying to teach and would just let us work quietly. After all, the point of an early release day is so the teachers can take a break from us. Miss White, on the other hand, acts like she's teaching us valuable life lessons. Reminds me of those teachers from old TV shows that had morals as the central theme. My sister and I used to watch them all the time in elementary school. Miss White finally heaves a disappointed sigh. Skylar, she says, can you answer the question? Skylar tenses. Though I'm irritated that Miss White is picking on her, I'm grateful she didn't call on me. The entire class is looking at her. My phone vibrates a third time. The urge to pull out my phone is overwhelming like an itch I can't reach. However, I don't want to see if my mother was serious about breaking my phone or not. Skylar begins. I turn my head to face her. I think we're... She lets out a small, awkward laugh. Miss White narrows her eyes. She would make Skylar talk for the entire 15 minutes if it meant getting an answer. Skylar looked at me. The panic in her eyes kill any gratefulness I have. Public speaking is one thing. Getting called on by a teacher while the minutes drag by, that classifies as torture. Oh, come on. You teach us this BS because you're legally required to. The words roll off my tongue before I can stop them. The class bursts into repressed giggling. The tips of Skylar's ears are red. Miss White looks like she swallowed a lemon. My fingers go back to my necklace. Selena Harper Jones, she begins. That makes the class laugh louder. Don't ask me why Miss White thinks using a student's full name is impactful. That was incredibly rude, young lady. Well, so is trying to impose a life lesson on us from a book older than our grandparents. You know you don't get paid enough for this anyway. Anxiety is gnawing at my armpit sleeves. Miss White's eyes are narrowed. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Skylar shoot me a look that tells me I took it too far. At least I didn't call her the C word, which is what some kid called her yesterday. Okay, maybe I was a little harsh. But I don't know what she expected from middle schoolers. If she wants students who will cooperate, she should go work in a college. Miss White turns to her whiteboard. I feel a pang of guilt shoot through my heart. My fingers are wrapped so tight around my necklace, I can feel a pennant digging into my fingertips. As annoying as she is, I hate to see a teacher cry. I was only trying to stick up for Skylar anyway. Before I could think of an apology, though, she tells us to read until the bell rings and goes to her desk. A few kids shoot me a dirty look. I open the book, pretending not to see. You can't win them all, can you? My phone vibrates. What is with this thing? I need to mute it ASAP. Miss White is looking at her computer, so I take my chance. I was getting notifications because I got tagged in some photo on Insta... Oh no. I'm staring at a photo of myself, looking startled. Next to me is my twin sister Bridget. She has an arm slung around my shoulder like we're best buds. She's flashing the peace sign with the hand by my shoulder. Her other hand was taking the selfie. This was taken in the school bathroom about a half hour ago. Embarrassment and anger wash over me. Looking at this photo, nobody would have guessed we were even sisters, let alone twins. I know it's a cliche, but I'm dead serious. Bridget has caramel blonde hair and loose ringlets that fall to her shoulders. My hair is an auburn that comes in wavy curls that stop in my back. She's wearing a light orange floral sundress. I'm wearing a flannel jacket over a black emo band t-shirt. I recognize the green heart on a silver chain as my necklace. It rests comfortably against my collarbone in the picture. My jean shorts are barely shown in the frame. My eyes go to our faces. Bridget's light green eyes are dancing with mischief. My violet eyes are bugging out. Her lips are curled into a smirk while my mouth is half open, exposing light blue braces and spit stretching from the top row of my teeth to my bottom. Ew! Bridget had snuck up on me in the bathroom when she snapped that picture. I had ducked into the bathroom because a fight had broken out, and trying to cut through the hallway during a fight is a fate worse than death. Selfie! Bridget had squealed, and before I could even register what was happening, she snapped a photo with her flash on. What the hell? I had shouted when she snapped the picture. Bridget dropped her arm as soon as this picture was taken, as if touching my shoulder would make her sick. She studied the phone. Outside, I could hear a teacher shouting for the kids to break it up. "How does it feel to be the ugly stepsister?" she asked in a sweet, condescending voice. Stepsister? I stared at her dumbly. I started to ask her how twins were supposed to be stepsisters. Then I realized what she meant. "Well, how does it feel to be the wicked bitch of the West?" I snapped. She narrowed her eyes, flipped me the bird, then stomped out. "You better delete that pic," I shouted after her. Okay, so technically she never promised to delete that photo. But I hadn't expected her to post it to social media and tag me in it. My social media is supposed to be private, and she knows it too. Hashtag can't help I'm the queen. It's the only hashtag that registers in my mind before I get another notification. People are commenting on the picture. Our classmates commenting on a super unflattering picture of me. Before I can stop myself, I'm reading a few of the comments. Your sis is gross. Damn, Bridget, you're pretty, but who is the loser with you? Selena is such a freak. I bite the inside of my lip. I can't keep up with the number of kids that are posting comments. Is this my instant karma for being rude to my teacher? I quickly put my phone into my backpack, swallowing back the lump in my throat. Ever since we got into the 8th grade, it feels like Bridget has made it a point to humiliate me in any way she can. At the beginning of the year, she spread a rumor that I wrote erotic fan fiction about our teachers, and I don't even like writing. Last month, Bridget accused me of wearing contact lenses and convinced everyone that I'm fake AF. She used to love the color of my eyes, too. My eyes are violet, with shades of lighter purple around the iris, and it has been like that my whole life. Tears are starting to prickle. Crying in a classroom will haunt you until you graduate from college in a different state. I press my face into my arms to stop it. I breathe in, then out. In, out. In, whiff of roses, out. My stomach drops a bit. Roses. No matter where I am, that scent reminds me of my grandmother, who died 2 years ago. Roses were her favorite. The last time I actually smelled roses was at her funeral. Now I avoid the scent every chance I have. I pull my face from my arms. The smell of roses is growing stronger. Did somebody go heavy on the perfume again? Why isn't Miss White saying anything? I raise my head a bit. I see hues of blue and purple mixing together as if they were watercolors. I sit up properly, rubbing my eyes. I blink several times, wondering what exactly I'm looking at. Instead of a smartboard and Miss White's desk and podium, there's a field of blue flowers. Miss White is gone. Heat flushes my cheeks and ears as I look around. Shades of blue, just like the forbidden filter. The entire classroom has been replaced with more of these blue flowers. Where people should be are more flowers. Flowers snaking up and around my desk. Everyone is gone. Even Skylar. I stand up so fast that I knock the chair over. It sinks slowly into the flower bed. I swallow back a scream. I take a tentative step away from my desk. I don't know if the flowers would consume me too. How in the hell did I get here? The rose scent is overwhelming me. Is this a rose garden? Where is the classroom? I reach for the flower's stem. I have to see if this is real. Dark blue thorns catch my finger. Not enough to pierce the skin or stop me from plucking the flower and bring it to my face. Petals are silky and are bright blue. It is a rose. A blue rose. Something tugs at my heart. Harper! The blue rose falls from my fingers. I turn around. Who addresses people by their middle name? A woman is a few feet away from me, standing where Miss White stood. I can't see her face, but I can see her hair and dress. Her hair is like fire. Her dress is like fire, Shades of orange and red that run up and down the dress. It has frills and black specks of glitter that are sprinkled all over the dress. Her hair is a ghostly white that is standing out against her blue skin. It reaches her shoulder. Wait, Wait. Blue skin? I do a double take. Her skin is a light blue that reminds me of the sky. I can feel my jaw dropping. I've only ever seen blue-skinned people in fantasy movies, not in my real life. Come here, Harper, the woman says louder. Why does she sound familiar? I shake my head, like I'm about to walk over to a stranger. Familiar stranger? No, because if I knew her, she wouldn't be a stranger. How do you know my middle name? I ask. My voice sounds too loud. The woman tilts her head. I'm guessing she's confused too. She makes a shrugging gesture, bringing her hands up too. Her palms are even lighter than her skin, but still blue. Is this a dream? Ma'am, my vocal cords choke out. It's like my brain and mouth aren't in sync. Where am I? I'm not supposed to be here. I swallow. I'm supposed to be in my English class. I've only got like 10 minutes left, so if you could take me home, that'd be great. I'm holding my necklace so tight I can feel the gemstone breaking skin. The gemstone is burning hot. You're not supposed to be there, the woman half repeats. I let out a small groan. Ugh, come on, lady. If you know I shouldn't be here, why repeat it? I let go of the necklace. Maybe the distance is the problem. I glance back to my desk, but it has vanished along with my backpack. Great. So I can't text or call anyone if I'm in danger. I look up at the sky. It's orange, like the woman's dress. I have no clue what time it is, or if it's day or night. A word sits at the back of my throat. It's sitting nicely with the growing sense of familiarity. Except I'm not really in the mood to try to figure all this out. I just want to go home. I take a few small steps towards the woman. She isn't moving. I can only see her chest rising and falling. So at least I know she's alive, right? I want to hold on to my necklace again. However, my hands are glued to my sides, half curled to fists in case I need to attack. Can you hear me? I ask. My voice still sounds too loud, and I'm honestly freaking out. I have this feeling that I'm shaking, but I know I'm not showing it. Is it possible to be shaking internally? Harper. The woman's voice has grown softer. Guess she can hear me after all. It's Selena, I correct her. The woman and I are about an arm's length apart. I'm keeping myself tense so I can run if I have to. I'm closer to her, but I still can't see her face. It's blurrier than a camera struggling to focus. The familiar feeling is pumping through my veins. My brain is scratching at a memory like a lottery scratch-off. Why does this place feel like a place from childhood? A place I used to go to all the time as a kid, but now that I'm a teen, I'm looking and I don't remember any of it. But I know I've been here, in this blue rose garden with its orange sky. Hell, I think the word trying to climb out of my mouth is whoever this woman is. We miss you, sweetheart, the woman says. She takes a step closer, and I don't flinch when she presses a hand against my cheek. I shouldn't be letting this woman touch my face, but my brain has frozen up. Her hand is warm and soft. I know you miss me, I choke out. It's like I've lost control of my vocal cords. Tears are flowing freely. The word is clashing against my teeth. The jarring bang of metal against metal jerks her hand away from my face. My mouth drops open again as a giant object appears behind her. It's taller than both of us combined. It has a green border with green jewels. In the center is glass. The glass is showing the garden. It came right out of the ground. Wait, I say. She's walking backwards until her back is pressed against the glass. Wait! Her movement is sad and hesitant. The metal against metal continues to screech as I run towards her, pleading with her to wait for just a second. I do know you, I scream. I know who you are. The glass surrounding the woman glows. I watch in horror as the woman is engulfed into the glass. The word that I've been fighting finally tumbles out. Mom! I feel so flustered, but I can't figure out why. Did I really just call that woman my mother?